It's time for the White Sox leadership to stop saying it's possible Grant Taylor can be a starting pitcher and stop being afraid and make him a starter.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm Todd Welter. Welcome to Locked On White Sox, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. On today's show, I'll get to this week's mailbag comments, especially going over a recent addition the team made. That comes after discussing one compliment and one critique I have regarding the Sox using an opener. But first, let's talk about the White Sox manager and front office. Keep saying it's possible Grant Taylor can become a full-time starter. Just make him a starter. And the White Sox decision makers have to stop saying Grant Taylor moving back to being a starter is a possibility and just do it. I mean, his stuff has looked amazing the past 3 games where he has been an opener that I'm at the point where it's just pull the trigger, do it, move him to the rotation. Now, we may have to wait until 2027 because, you kind of missed the spring training period to stretch him out. But this idea that the front office is afraid of his mechanics leading to an injury or his arm just not being strong enough to handle more innings, it's got to stop. I mean, I get leaving the door open for him to start, but the organization is going about communicating it so poorly. And that's where I'm mostly getting frustrated. It's using terms like I think, or it's possible, or, we haven't shut the door. I mean, if it was, hey, we want a Mason Miller pitcher in our bullpen, and he has the stuff to be that guy. But as you saw with Garrett Crochet, it would be ridiculous to shut the door on a guy with power stuff never being a starter. I think that's the messaging you got to take, not this wishy-washy stuff. It should be this guy could potentially be a shutdown 7th, 8th, and 9th inning guy. That's the priority because we've got some depth in our minor league system for guys that can be special, like Taylor. But, hey, you saw with Garrett Crochet, maybe after a few years it could happen. But when you read or hear what manager Will Venable or pitching director Brian Bannister says, I just want to be like, well, why are we not taking the risk then? Oh, it's possible. And I am coming around to taking the risk because I've always been in the camp of Taylor's arm will dictate where he will be in terms of his health. Because this all started when he had some arm fatigue in the minors last year. He already had Tommy John surgery in college. So the White Sox were like, okay, if he's got the arm fatigue, why are we wasting his good stuff when he could actually be here right now? But he's been looking great in the opener role. And why not see if that can play for 5 or 6 innings every 5 days rather than 1 inning a few days a week? Now, Taylor opening 3 of the past 4 games actually has been a good strategy call. I know that there's some that are like, why are we using our most talented arm in probably the lowest leverage situations? But remember, teams are now stacking usually their 3 best hitters to get them the most at-bats and also to get off to a good start. And we've seen the White Sox get buried in their losses outside of last night. So it is good strategy. I mean, you're facing Taylor Ward, Gunnar Henderson, and Pete Alonso against the Orioles. And then against the Blue Jays, you are facing George Springer and Vlad Guerrero Jr. So I would subscribe to not wanting my starter facing those guys a 3rd time through the order. So why not knock out their first at-bats with my best pitcher to avoid starting the game in an early hole? I'm fine with that. Because stuff-wise, Taylor is the best pitcher the White Sox have right now on their 26-man roster. And he has been sharp in the opener role. 3 games, 34 pitches, 3 strikeouts, no walks, 1 hit. I mean, small sample size, but he has been overmatching guys. Not just overwhelming them, overmatching. And he looks comfortable out there compared to, throwing in later innings. He seems more at ease coming out, listening to, his pump up music. It just, you see a guy who seems just very confident that he is going to mow down the three best hitters, probably the next, 3-3. This is a guy that looks like he wants to keep the ball. Now, Taylor said in the offseason, he's open to whatever role. But he does enjoy starting because of the decisions of, what to deploy from his arsenal rather than, he said as a reliever, you're just rearing back and throwing heat and then occasionally mixing in a secondary stuff. When you're a starter, you got to be more judicious. You got to be more, use more strategy on what are you going to deploy. Yet this front office just keeps going with responses like, I think, and it's possible he can be a starter.
I think that's a possibility.
Is it possible, Will? Or is this maybe trying to ease him in as a closer? Or, helping him get better and ease him into high leverage situations by facing the team's three best hitters in maybe a less pressure environment? Well, no, according to Venable.
I haven't thought about it like that. Really, it's just been about doing everything we can to find a path to winning and knowing that can look different on a daily basis. And it just so happens, but today we feel that Grant opening up for us gives us the best chance. And, as far as what that means to him and his exposure to different parts of the lineup, I think every time he goes out there, he continues to develop and learn something about himself, something about this league, and gets better.
And here's what Bannister recently said about Taylor's role via MLB.com's White Sox beat writer Scott Merkin. At Scott Merkin, he tweeted this out. Brian Bannister on Grant Taylor, quote, he's out there. He's dominant. I think he's one of the better arms in all of baseball, and he can pitch in multiple roles. He's a very fun arm and a very fun upside. We're going to continue to do what's best for him. I'm open to any version of him that's going to be best for him and best for the Chicago White Sox, end quote. But again, it's vague. You would, and I get we're at the point of the rebuild where you can still experiment with things, but if you're going to experiment with things, experiment with him being a starter. Injury risk be darned. But could it also be the White Sox want to preserve his arm through this period because they eventually want to trade him? Because former host of this show and now host of the CHGO White Sox podcast, Sean Anderson, he keeps believing that based off of what Bannister once said about guys like Dylan Cease and Garrett Crochet that, they're going to have to trade him at some point. I got the quote up for those watching on YouTube. Basically, they can't hang on to premium players forever is what Bannister's looking at. So you kind of have to develop them faster, as he's saying, and then get the most out of the guys and then turn them over. Although I want to live in a world where when the ownership does take place, that the deep-pocketed Justin Ishbia will actually pay to keep pitching. But the injury risk is real. However, how long did we live with Chris Sale's supposed mechanics destroying his arm? And there was this fear with Crochet after, he had Tommy John surgery and then moved to a starter after never pitching more than 73 innings. There was this complete fear that, oh my gosh, his arm is going to fall off. And it turned out great. Now Crochet's body and mechanics are a bit different than Taylor's, but it's just give it a shot. And we've seen it now twice. Granted, it was left-handed guys, but we've seen it now twice with this risk where it turned out to be great. And I would just be more comfortable if the messaging was better. Even if it was, hey, more, hey, we need someone to cover what we lost with Mike Vassell and we'll reevaluate after the season. Fine with that. Or even if it's cliche, we're just focused on this year. Fine. But it's this non-vision response of it's possible, we'll see, that just makes you want to scream, then make it a reality already. Now, I do have one compliment and one critique when it comes to the club using an opener that I want to discuss next. The NBA playoffs are almost here where every position matters. Every matchup is magnified and every game can swing a series. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a great way to get in on the action. You can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. The app makes it easy to follow the action with player stats, trends, and matchups all in one place. During the playoffs, that extra insight really matters when you're looking at stars, role players, and key moments. It just makes the entire playoff experience more engaging from start to finish. And I like how playing FanDuel's traditional money lines, the spreads, and the over-unders makes watching a game just more interesting. I get more engaged when I got a little something riding on it. However, I'll always maintain it is always better to play the props, the parlays, and the futures if you want a shot at bigger payouts. For example, if you think San Antonio can win the whole thing, well, that's at plus 500 the last time I checked. So if you throw down, say, $10 on that, you could potentially win $50 if it does happen. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Baseball is finally back, and to celebrate, I'm giving you a full month free of the Everydayer Club. That's right, full month free. Go to LockedOnWhiteSox.supercast.com and use code FINALLY. That's code FINALLY at LockedOnWhiteSox.supercast.com, and you'll unlock every episode ad-free. You're going to get access to our private listener group chat. I got, the Discord chat set up to talk about what's going on game day, so I'd love to talk some White Sox baseball with you. Tap the link in the show notes and use code FINALLY to claim your free month. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. This is now my third season podcasting here. I've been covering the team well before that, and I've also covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And I do like how manager Will Venable and his staff, and possibly the front office, has used the opener as a solution to your early starting pitching woes. I mean, the club was having some major issues during the first 6 games, just eating up innings. I mean, I believe Eric Fetty's outing, his first outing was like the first time a starter had gone through like 6 innings. Anthony Kay went 4 1/3 against the Brewers. I mean, Shane Smith got absolutely shelled. And Sean Burke didn't fare too well in his first go around. You just had these issues of eating up valuable innings. I mean, other than Davis Martin. And finally, him going 6 innings on Sunday, I believe, was the longest outing a guy went. And that is, to me, something that is a good solution. I mean, you spotted Fetty, Kay, and Burke an opener, and that allowed them to actually get through more innings during their second go around in the rotation. However, that's not the compliment I want to pay Venable. Instead, the compliment I want to pay them is they got they got the buy-in from those guys. That deserves a lot of praise. Although the critique I have is Smith should be spotted in an opener with how badly he has struggled during spring training and his first 2 starts. But I do appreciate Venable acknowledging that using an opener with guys who are used to starting can throw things off.
That's something that we really want to be sensitive about, and really set the expectation up front that this is how we're going to go about it. Our guys to a man are very open to it, knowing that it is in the spirit of winning and trying to do everything we can to win. But we do want to be sensitive that these guys have, throughout their careers, had a certain way of preparing, that we're still able to accomplish those things and be ready, in a bulk role behind an opener. So, it's part of the nuance to it, but I feel like because we have such good guys, because they want to do everything they can to help us win, and we kind of set the expectation and kind of the logic behind it up front. It seems like we have buy-in so far.
And he added into how they got the buy-in.
I don't know if selling it is the way that I would say it. I think, like everything, when we're asking guys to do things, we want to just be transparent and set the expectation up front and give them the reasons why we're doing those things. And then after that, they communicate that they're not able to do those because it interferes with how they prepare, then we make adjustments, and we're all working together here to accomplish the same thing. So I think just that approach alone and giving them a voice in this too, and autonomy to speak up for what they believe in and what's important to them. It doesn't feel like we're really selling anybody on anything. We're just all kind of putting our heads together to do the best thing and try and win it.
I mean, it sounds like you got a manager that respects his players and the players respecting the manager back. And I like he went over the communication factor. I like how he gave a good answer. It would have been nice if he gave that same type of answer for Grant Taylor when it comes to his future. And when it comes to identifying problems and applying solutions, I actually do think Venable has been doing a good job. I know in the moment it sometimes doesn't feel that way. But to the anti-Venable crowd, and it does exist, especially after the first 6 games, I saw the comments. There were some folks that were definitely not sold on Venable. I suggest this is a suggestion. Just zoom out and see what happens within a day or like 3. Because again, you had this issue of starters can't get through innings. Starters don't look prepared. All that stuff, blah, 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 blah. And they implement the solution. And you've been seeing much better pitching. So it has been finding solutions and implementing them and making sure the players have bought in. However, if there's one guy who needs an opener, it's Smith. And the guy's ERA over the past 2 games is over 19. I mean, that is a concern. And I've talked about it a few times. Like, we got to press pause on him potentially becoming an ace, certified ace this season. We just now got to hope, can he at least be still a viable starting pitcher? That's how bad he's looked through spring training and through his first 2 starts. He's not looked crisp. The stuff looks flat. And it would just make sense to have someone else get Gunnar Henderson and Pete Alonso out the first time through. Because Smith's first 2 starts have been so bad that the game has been over for the Sox after 2 innings. It's been game over. That Marlins game, it was done in the second or third inning? Now, credit to Sandy Alcantara. I mean, he threw a Maddox out there, but the White Sox got in such a huge hole because of how bad Smith was out there. And I appreciate thinking he still has stud stuff and maybe making some tweaks, gets him turned around. But do what you did with Burke and give Smith a chance to regain some confidence. Have him take on the 3 best hitters maybe a bit later in the game, especially when you're facing 2 elite hitters in Gunnar Henderson and Pete Alonso. Also, maybe have Smith get warmed up, during the top of the second in the bullpen. Instead of, you got to throw the bullpen, then you got to do your customary walk, and then you got to sit, for a few minutes, during your introductions, and then you run out there, and then you got to warm up again. Maybe have him throw his bullpen session, and not in the top of the second, bottom of the first. Have him warm up in the bottom of the first. And then he can just come straight out, throw a few more warm-up pitches, and then boom, you're ready to go. I think it's just a missed opportunity to potentially solve some of Smith's issues. Well, this week's mailbag tackles the White Sox making a pitching edition and some other interesting questions that I'll address next.
Hey, this is Jeff Carr from Locked On Reds, and when it comes to our futures, we all have great ideas when it comes to our job, when it comes to our house, when it comes to our vehicles, all that great stuff. But honestly, when it comes to securing that future, I don't know what I don't know. And when me and my wife sat down to figure out the life insurance thing, Ethos made everything simple. Everything's online, you have a quick and easy application process, and you find out exactly what you need for coverage all in one spot. Ethos makes everything so convenient when it comes to learning about your own life insurance, because insurance is something that is far beyond batting average or on-base percentage. It's way out in left field for me. Ethos made it all easy. Take just 10 minutes and get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/lockedonmlb. That's ethos.com/lockedonmlb. Application times may vary and rates may vary.
Welcome back to Locked On White Sox, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. And baseball's finally back. And to celebrate, I'm giving you a full month of the Everydayer Club for free. Go to lockedonwhitesox.supercast.com and use code FINALLY. That's code FINALLY. And you'll unlock every episode ad-free and get access to our private listener group chat. Tap the link in the show notes and use code FINALLY to claim your free month. So I would tackle who the Sox should call up to replace the injured Austin Hayes, but the decision has to happen in like a few hours of taping this episode. So I'd rather actually react to it than speculate. However, the White Sox did make a waiver claim by claiming pitcher Doug Nikhazy. I think that's a great last name, Nikhazy. They claimed him off of waivers, and now this might be another Owen White claim. For those that forgot about him, he was a former highly regarded pitching prospect. I think the Rangers had. I think he was like a first or I think he was a second round pick. The White Sox claimed him in the 2024, the offseason heading into the last season, and didn't really turn out to be much. But it's a pitcher worth claiming during a rebuild given his draft status. And I got a comment on the YouTube channel that was all about this edition and gave a nice scouting report that I wanted to kick off this week's mailbag with. And this is from Gorgeous Latin Kid. He writes in the YouTube comments, Doug Nikhazy is actually a very White Sox type pickup right now. He's a left-handed pitcher drafted in the second round by Cleveland in 2021 out of Ole Miss. In college, he was dominant, but in pro ball, he's been more inconsistent. Strengths, decent command and control, doesn't walk too many hitters. Deceptive delivery that makes hitters uncomfortable, solid pitch mix, fastball, slider, changeup. Competitive mentality, bulldog type on the mound. Weakness, below average velocity, around 90 to 92 miles per hour. No true swing and miss elite pitch. Very small margin for error. If he misses location, he gets hit hard. Inconsistent results in AAA. So why the White Sox claim him? Honestly, it fits their current strategy perfectly. Low risk development project, cheap left-handed depth with options, a pitcher they can try to fix through sequencing, command, and pitch usage. This isn't a flashy move at all, but it's a smart one. He's the type of arm that, if everything clicks, could turn into a solid number 5 starter or long reliever. Best case scenario, low cost overperformer. Worst case, just another depth arm in the shuffle. Classic rebuild move. And appreciate that scouting report. So I didn't have to look it up because, we've seen Owen White fail. And Doug Nikhazy, if you can't make it with the Guardians, you kind of got to be a little leery because they're very good at developing pitchers. But at the same point, maybe something was potentially missed. And again, it can't hurt to take a chance, especially on a left-handed pitcher. Although Lesselbro 8880 in the YouTube comments, and if I'm mispronouncing your name there, guy, I'm sorry. Please let me know. He is always in the comments, and I really appreciate his feedback. I love this comment he has. I have no problem with this. Can't hurt to work with this guy and see what he can do. I guess I do have a tangential issue, though, because I'm trying to figure out who in the Sox org Shane Murphy bleeped off. It seems like either they straight up hate him or they're dedicated to just having him destroy the souls of the Southern League hitters year after year, like a sadistic kid pulling the wings off butterflies or burning ants with a magnifying glass in the sun. When you master a level, you should get promoted to the next one. It's the entire point of having levels in the first place. And hey, we like Sean Murphy on this show, or Shane Murphy. We like Shane Murphy here. Although Murphy, he's just blocked by 3 top pitching prospects, with 2 of them being lefties. Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith do have the higher ceilings to be dominant aces. And Tanner McDougal, he's a righty, but again, he's got the chance to be a very special pitcher. And then you got 2 organizational depth righties. And Bannister has actually been very complimentary of Murphy, but I do think the lack of velocity gets him pushed down the organizational prestige rankings, like compared to Duncan David and even a failed Jonathan Cannon. I still think Murphy can be an effective slow pitch pitcher like Brent Sutter. He's carved out a very nice career, and he actually got his shot when the Brewers were in their rebuild. But I'm not going to get too freaked out about it because pitching at AAA Charlotte should just be a parking lot based on that ballpark. It's a bandbox. And maybe that's another thing that they're a little bit leery because, while I still think they use it as an excuse to not pay for home runs, Rate Field, while it plays mostly to power, can be sometimes neutral, again, depending on the weather. We saw it last night. Even though the wind was blowing out, you get that little swirl and it can just knock balls dead. So, if he's got that slower stuff, if it does get tattooed, you still have an opportunity of maybe it not driving depending on the weather. But in AAA Charlotte, it's basically Coors Field in North Carolina. That ball carries. So maybe they do want to say, let's just leave him at Double-A. And I do believe he got a brief promotion, if my memory serves me correct. So, I just think that they're valuing their 3 best pitching prospects. And Duncan Davitt, in terms of the rankings, I think is higher than Murphy. Look at how long it took Murphy to become a top 30 prospect. And, Jonathan Cannon at least has big league experience. It's been failed, but I think that's kind of what they're going with there. Now, when it comes to the nicknames that I was asking for you guys to suggest on last Wednesday's show, Jay emailed me if I remember Herbert the Milkman Perry. And yes, I do. I mean, had that great season, hit over 30 home runs. And the reason why I remember is the Score had him on a few years back. I think it was when Dan Bernstein was still there and he was still paired up with Layla Rahimi. And it was one of the best interviews I had ever heard. I mean, I loved Perry. Had a ton of energy and magic. It was one great season, but it happened at the exact time that you wanted that season to happen. So, of course, I mean, that is a really great nickname, the Milkman. All right. Then Brian emailed me this. Hey, Todd, what's your opinion of the rumor that the Twins cheated to win the 1987 and 1991 World Series by having the air blow a certain way to give them an advantage when at bat and on defense as well in their home games? Do you think that it's a big deal if true? Do you consider them cheaters who shouldn't have won? Or do you think it would have made that much of a difference and the Twins deserve to be champs? Do I think if it's a big deal if true? I mean, it's not as big as, say, the Astros trying to steal signs. I mean, yes, would it be technically cheating by blowing the air conditioning differently? Sure, but I mean, the Humpty Dump also played to put the ball on the ground. Just let that mat roll. So, I mean, that is one thing that I would say is, the opposing team like the Braves and the Cardinals, they should have been trying to hit more grounders, not put the ball in the air. But the internet search was a stadium superintendent admitted to doing this. And it is a conspiracy because the Twins won all 4 games to win the World Series at home in 87 and 91. However, if it worked in 87 and 91, why didn't the Twins not do it in the 2000s when they were, raking in Central Division titles and then just getting summariously dumped by the Yankees? Did this superintendent leave? Did he not, kind of leave behind some notes on the tricks? So that's why, I mean, it's kind of a conspiracy, although they're facing those Yankees lineups. And those lineups did have better overall talent than the 87 Cardinals and the 91 Braves. So that's another thing to take a look at is and the Cardinals and the Braves were very good teams, especially the 91 Braves. But they did not have as much superstar talent in their lineup like, say, the Yankees did when they were absolutely crushing the souls of the Twins. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. I'll be back tomorrow with the weekly Way Back Wednesday segment. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox or wherever you get your audio podcasts. As this show is available on places such as Apple or Spotify, you can email me at lockedonwhitesox@gmail.com. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can follow me at Todd J. Dub. Also, the show has a TikTok page at Locked On White Sox. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On White Sox ad-free plus members-only Discord access and so much more. Head to lockedonwhitesox.supercast.com to join the club. And if you've already signed up, tell your friends to join. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later.